Welcome to selfdiscoverymedia.com, where the orchard of wisdom shows are at your fingertips. It ignites your soul, your heart, your spirit, your mind, and your body with illumination from people who have made the journey before you. They're here now to help you on your journey, on your path of self-discovery. We are funded by you, the audience, and the people we interview. If you wish to support us, please go to selfdiscoverymedia.com and press on our Fund Action button. Anything is appreciated. We'd like you to sit back and enjoy the shows. Here we go. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Ignite Your Heart and Soul right here on selfdiscoverymedia.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy. My guest today is Richard V. Battle. My apologies. It's just telling me that he's coming on the show, and a big ding dong in the background. So we are going to be talking about today, kind of igniting our heart and souls, about money can't buy everything. Yes, it's very important in our lives for the roof over our head and our security, but it's not the be all and the end all. And that the real treasure can be in faith and in hope and in love and in just simple kindness and wonderment towards life. So how are we going to ignite our heart and soul? How are we going to actually look at life from a different point of view? Because yes, we are looking at life, especially with the present moment, COVID and everything else. It's put prices up everywhere where we can go. So how do we actually take the money down and put the faith and hope up? How do we look at that as the true treasure in life? Well, he says we all need money to survive. No amount of money can buy peace, happiness, joy, love, or friendship. Yet humans continue to pursue the riches, believing it will solve all their problems. In a recent article in the Philadelphia Inquirer details treasure hunters suing the federal government for documents related to a lost war gold shipment. The military lost the gold in 1863, and the hunters have pursued it since. Finders Keepers, a group led by the Parada family, have spent decades searching for the treasure and the plaintiffs in the lawsuit. This is his latest book, Life's Daily Treasure. He's also written numerous other books. And we're going to be talking about those as well today. But he says, first, we must prioritize faith, family, relationships over the acquisition of money. It is effortless for men to fall into the trap of prioritizing providing financially for their families and missing the essential things in life. It is essential to live balance in our spirituality, family, physical, mental, financial, and social areas of our life. He believes that faith in God helped him survive heart procedures, divorce, cancer, surviving an apartment fire that killed a neighbor, rebound from financial devastation, and a crushing blow of his only son's passing. Well, first and foremost, I do feel very, very sorry for your son's passing. No parent ever wants to see their child go before them. And that must have been a devastating blow in itself.
Well, Sarah, thank you for having me again. And yes, that was the worst of life's challenges that I've faced. And I'm not an exception. I mean, there's other people who faced more challenges than I have, but I've tried to learn from each one of those and tried to use each one of those to help me. And then in turn, where I can try to help others when they face challenges in life.
The ultimate challenge, that I think, but you know, divorce, heart procedure, fire. I mean, you certainly have gone through the ringer. There are many, many people that go through just one thing and kind of give up. You know, they surrender to the victimization, or they surrender to,
Yes.
you know, the trauma of it, and they get caught up in the drama of it. And you know, as proven in that one sentence, is you've been knocked down a few times, but you came back up. And would you say that's your faith that helped you get back up each time?
Well, the faith is definitely very, very important in helping on that. And you're correct. Our culture in both of our countries promotes victimization. They want the people to be victims because the governments want to be the saviors to everybody, but they're not. And our parents and grandparents went through much tougher times than we've gone through. And as young people told me that COVID, how could it be any worse than the COVID years? And I said, well, I've been through a lot worse than COVID. And there's been people who've been through a lot worse than I've been through as well. And each time we go through those challenges, it's up to us to use that and get back up as an example for those coming behind us, just like our parents and grandparents were for us.
Exactly, exactly. And yeah, think of people in war-torn areas, or think of, our parents. I'm from England. My dad was a squadron leader, a fighter pilot in the war. And, they never knew the silent bombs or if it was going to hit them. They never knew if they were going to get the telegram, and the thing is, food was short, a lot of things going on, yet they pulled together because they all knew they were in it together, and everybody stepped up to help one another. And sometimes in the worst situation, we see the best of humanity. Now, why can't we be at our best all the time?
Well, and that's a great question. And since World War II, we've not been as big a challenge as that globally.
Yes.
And I always like to use the illustration of Leningrad, which is St. Petersburg now. The Germans put the city under siege in December of 1941, 873 days. They estimated 800,000 to 1 million civilians died of starvation or disease. And it was so bad that when someone in your house died, you just put their body out on the curb the next day and a horse-drawn wagon hauled them off for mass burial.
Yeah.
And those people in that city that survived, and they are thriving now. And yes, we're going through other situations, but they went through things much tougher than most of us are going through now or have gone through in our lives.
Yes. We get a little cushy. Oh, my phone isn't working. Life's come to an end. Excuse me. It's like, let's prioritize. And as we started off, money isn't everything. Yes, haven't got anything against money. I haven't got anything against people becoming rich. I think the more you have, the more you concede opportunities for other people, right? So be rich, aim to be rich, but who is paying for you to be rich? And we see so many CEOs up in their ivory towers, totally disconnected from the people in the grindstone that are keeping them up there, with a lack of gratitude, a lack of appreciation, a great deal of entitlement. And it's like, well, I've got the money, so I've got the power. But if you really look at them, they're sad little people, lonely, sad, disconnected from everything in life and beyond. And yeah, they're rich. Money only. Are they rich in anything else?
Well, that's exactly true. And Life's Daily Treasure, people ask me why I wrote it. Well, in the fall of 2020, when we were going through COVID, I was using things to help keep my spirits up. Inspirational quotes from scripture, motivational quotes. I got tired of people trashing the United States. And so I looked for things to celebrate the history of the United States. And so this book, which has 366 days, each day there is an inspirational quote, there's a motivational quote, there's one of my inspirational quotes, and then there's 3 listings, on a birthday of an American citizen who did something special, anniversary of an American achievement, and celebration of the national day. One day might be National Pizza Day. Right. And it just takes a minute or so each day to look at, but it's something that if someone will look at it each day, I guarantee you it will lift their spirit and show them that there are positive opportunities to go out and they can influence their day by being positive over being negative.
Amen. Amen, amen, amen. I always believe that true enrichment, abundance in life comes from the heart and soul. It comes from kindness, it comes from giving, and it comes from love itself. God is love, and that's what he tries to teach us. And we can't find love unless we find kindness, appreciation, gratitude, caringness, that empathy and compassion. And if we can't bring those ingredients up, we're not going to reach that beautiful love vibration. And simple gratitudes, even waking up in the morning. Thank you, I woke up. I have an opportunity of another day. It's the tiny, simple things, but I always say it's what you seed and water is what's going to grow. Do you want to really another disgruntled day? Do you want another day of hard misery? Or are you going to plant the seeds the night before in the morning, water them and go, this is going to be a beautiful day?
Two other interesting data points on this particular volume. Each day of the 31 days of a month is a subject. So the first of the month is always joy, the second's honor, the third's heart, the 17th's encouragement, overcomer, wisdom, faith. So each day of the month has a different subject. And what was interesting when we were looking at the piece about money and money won't buy you happiness, I did a word search, and the word money is not in this volume one time. So all of the motivation and inspiration does not use the word money once, even though we all need money. We don't want to get out of balance in our lives where we focus too much on money. And men, especially men who provide for their families, we have a tendency to do that. And there's been times I did that in my life as well.
Yeah. The breadwinner and the kids, what they demand, and, we've got to pay the mortgage, and it's, and especially in unsure times, we've coming out of the pandemic, we're now in an economic recovery, and we're also in an emotional restabilization. And yes, so many people who have had that cosmic 2x4 and it's flattened them, they're getting up and they need help along the way to get back on their feet and to find that new direction. And that generally costs money to find those coaches and those people. So that is what we call investing in yourself. And that is ultimately where down the road, I want to have a foundation that supports that. It's called Fund Action, which will actually pay for the services for people who can't afford them, for those people to regrow into who they really are and what they're really here meant to be. But I'm glad that you didn't put money into that. Again, money is not the evil, folks. We all need it. But when you step into the priority of joy, of happiness, of contribution, of service to one another, the money will come.
The late Robert Schuller had a quote that inspired me many years ago. He said, if you had a problem that you could write a check and solve, you didn't have a problem, you have an expense. And that's so often true. And there's ways to find money to take care of those expenses. Sometimes it's more difficult than others. And I've been broke, so I've been there, know how that is. But I was blessed to be able to recover from it. And so many people who've been successful in life who preceded us have been broke before and had money challenges and have come back. And when they come back, they treat money differently than they did before they were broke, because they realize that whether they're up or down, that they can come back and succeed over and over and over again.
They're actually grateful for it. I've been doing this, I'm coming up to 10 years now, and I've interviewed some people that have really gone through some things that no human being should go through. But it just shows our resilience, our tenacity, our ability, the courage and the strength that lies within us. And every single one, every single one of them were flattened financially as well as on top of everything that happened to them. But every single one of them said they wouldn't change anything, because who they are today and what they're doing, and in the understanding, the comprehension of what they're doing and the power behind what they're doing was worth the journey, the journey to get there. And so, if you're knocked down, or if you get broke, or have a breakup or anything like that, it's not the end of the world. It's just the end of that chapter.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, absolutely. And I've been blessed to have had many great successes in my life. And as we've talked about, I've had some challenges as well. None of the challenges were pleasant going through them, but I'll have to say that the lessons learned from each of those challenges have been beneficial to me. And one of the things I learned after losing my son, and I wrote Surviving Grief by God's Grace about that loss and how the faith journey brought me back. But people normally, when they have a challenge, the first thing they say is, why me?
Yes.
And I believe that looks in the past, and I believe it's a focus on self. Whereas what I determined that was important for me is to ask the question, what now? And what now looks to the future. Yes. And what I found was when I focused on myself, then I would feel sorry for myself. Why did I lose my son? Why did I go through this experience? But when I focused on what now in the lesson I needed to learn to go forward, and I focused on how I could use that lesson to help others, then I would forget my pain because I'd be focused on the future and helping others. And it's helped me go through every challenge I've been through.
I've interviewed a lot of people who have lost their children, and each and every one of them has said that it's been a catalyst to doing something in their name or with their energy within them, with that purpose. And that although the child may not physically be there anymore, they are spiritually with them, leading them on, being their partner in whatever they're doing, and that it became the catalyst to doing something that was very, very important for others.
Yes. Well, I tell people I don't grieve where my son is. I grieve where he isn't.
Mm-hmm.
But I also, the first lesson in surviving grief by God's grace was the impact of a life is more important than its length. Mm. And every time, and this book's been out 20 years now, but I'll have people come up to me who will read it currently and say, thank you, this really helped me. And every time there's anything positive out of that, it adds to the impact of my son's life.
Exactly.
And it's a positive, even though he's not here.
And, you know, I'm a kind of a believer that we kind of write a soul contract before we come here. We're all here for a reason. And, you know, some are only here to be a beautiful blazing light for a short while. And the lesson of what to come is in their departure, you know, so it's hard. Nobody wants to lose a child that way or have that kind of lesson. But when you look at it from a distance, sometimes you see that realization of what is there. And, you know, I think that we have an entitled or a lack of gratitude in our society today. You know, things like entitlement and opulence. I need it, I want it, I've got to have it. You know, so many people are running on empty. Again, I've interviewed numerous CEOs, Fortune 500s, you know, and they had a heart attack or they lost everything or, you know, just something happened that they had to walk away from it. And what they're doing today is so much more enriching and abundant than what they ever did before. And they were very grateful for whatever that redirect was. But we can't always wait for the whole of society to get that kind of redirect. So it is the inspiration begets the invitation, doesn't it? So when people are inspired by your journey, it invites them to look at their life and their journey and go. And I think this is the gift of COVID in many ways, where people had to stop, pause, look at life. Am I going in the right direction? Have I placed the importance of money on everything and not on family, self, or life in itself?
You're so true, and we're all examples to others. Mm-hmm. And we don't have to be a profound example. One of the earliest cases when my daughter was about 2, I came home from work and she was eating popcorn. She just first time she'd been taught by her mother to eat popcorn, and she pulled one little piece out and put it in her mouth. Well, I came in, said hi. I grabbed a fistful of popcorn, shoved it in my mouth, went in the other room to change clothes. Well, guess what happened when I came back into the room with her? She's cramming a fistful of popcorn in her mouth at one time. I had been a negative example without saying a word.
Right.
And I saw her when she was 2 looking at the 3, 4, 5-year-old kids as an example also.
Yes.
And so we're all examples to other people. And we see movie stars and athletes say, don't look at me as an example. We don't have a choice.
Right.
We're examples whether we want to be or not. The only question is, what kind of example will we be?
I think that's again been with the COVID, you know, all the talk shows couldn't do it in studio anymore. Hair, makeup, everybody glam for 5 minutes, interview and off they go. Instead, it was via Zoom in their own home, their own hair and makeup, in their own environment. And we had so much more honest conversations. And you could look at them, my God, you know, they're rich, they're famous, and this and that, but they're going through the same problems I am. You know, so we're the ones that put people up there on the pedestal. We're the ones that make people feel look important or seem important. We do that. Why do we do that? What is our need to worship somebody because they're bigger or brighter than us? Or
well, I think that's a good question. Our culture promotes it, but I don't think it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
There's no one. I mean, there are many people who are below me on the economic scale, who may have other issues, who are better than me in some things.
Mm-hmm.
And there are people that may be above me on the economic scale that I may have a few talents that are better than them.
Yeah.
We all have unique talents and gifts, and we all ought to respect people for what they have and what they do with it. And to me, just to award someone adulation because of where they may be in their job or something of that nature is not really
social
worthy.
media tweets or anything else, Instagram.
I admire
and all
people who have less material
Yeah.
and who do more with
Yeah.
it than I would people who are on the other end of the spectrum.
Right. I get asked, do you interview celebrities? I said, yes, I celebrate everybody I interview. Right.
Yes.
Because if you're here to share something that's going to help somebody else's life, you're a celebrity in my books, right? Nobody has to have the 10 million followers, you know. How can you live up to that expectation anyway? And, you know, but, you know, on the other side of the scale of the adoration is this huge amount of judgment that we step into. And what right do we have to judge?
Well, I want to judge one thing. So it's interesting to me. I'll do a lot of posting, and everything I post is positive, trying to be motivational. I'll share other people's motivational work. I'll put videos out that are motivational. The Life's Daily Treasure, there's a daily vignette. It's 30 seconds or so each day for 366 days. That's positive.
Yes.
And I'll look at
it
the
actually
number
changes the entire psyche and the programming of the mind.
Yes.
So yes.
And I'll look at the number of views on the things that I do, and it's a minuscule number compared to the young ladies who disrobe or jump around and dance and things of that nature. And I'm thinking, where's the fairness in that?
Yes.
Well, it's not fair, but it just indicates where we are as a society right now, that people would rather have mindless entertainment than something that might lift them up and help redirect their motivation for where they go in their own lives.
Yeah, I've had a few educators on lately, and they're very, very frustrated. You know, certain books being pulled, being told what they can teach and what they can't teach. And also the fact that kids are emojis. You know, everything is a cryptic or an emoji profile, and they're not reading. And I'm not just going to go to the kids. I know for myself, when I send things out, they don't get read. People come back with the question, it's right there. It was the second line in the email, but they chose not to read it. And I think we've become a society where we're not paying attention. And I think if we could slow down, pay attention to what is around us, instead of this dire need to be important out there on social media, to be important in our own lives, and I think that we would just see things and hear things a lot better and be more in tune with one another.
Yeah, I think that it illustrates a saying that my dad used to have, that it's a mile wide and an inch deep. Yeah. And that's the way 90% of the communications is right now. There's not a depth to it, or it's an instant look and gone.
Yeah.
Versus something, if it might be brief, but something that people can reflect on and something that they can use to help themselves. And that's what I try to do, is share things that people can look at, whether it's my material or someone's else, and somebody can say, wow, that's an interesting perspective that can help me today. Right.
And that's the point. Let us be open to other people's perspectives. You know, I'm a True Colors coach, which teaches the 4 personality types. Each one has their own perspective and how they perceive and how they interact. And I always find it utterly fascinating. But we see things from our dominance, our dominant personality. That's how we see things. That's how we hear things. That's how we integrate. But if we're open to receiving other people's opinion on the subject, we're now going to see a more rounded picture, a more complete picture. And we'll probably find we're all seeing the same thing, but just from a different angle and a different perspective, but we're really articulating the same thing in a different language. Let us stop getting hot and bothered. No, you've got to see it this way. No, you've got to see it that way. And just go, okay, how do you see it? How do you see it? Let's lay it down. Let's look at the picture. Go, isn't this interesting?
Well, I think we've devolved. I started noticing this in the late 80s when I served on different boards. And it used to be that you could have a discussion and you take a vote on a matter, and the vote was always split, but the majority would win. And then all of a sudden there started becoming pressure for consensus. And not only the pressure for consensus, but people started demeaning folks who voted on the other side of issues. Mm-hmm. And now we see that in corporate boards, nonprofit boards, and legislative bodies, that if it's not a unanimous vote, that the people who vote on the negative side are demeaned. And I don't think that's healthy in any of those venues. I think a good discourse and debate strengthens us, just like exercise strengthens our muscles. Mm-hmm. And if you lose on an issue, that just means that you need to work harder on that particular issue or other things, persuade the other side, and come back and win the next time, hopefully, for your cause. Mm-hmm. And that's the way it has been healthy for our free societies for hundreds of years. And yet we've given that up to try to make people feel good because we accept what they tell us.
Right. And that is, mindlessness. I believe in each and every one of us is kind of an instrument. We learn how to play that instrument. Once we've discovered we learn how to play it, we play it well, and then we find an orchestra in which to play it in. But you don't go in it as the dominant lead. When you find that orchestra, this is my contribution. We're looking for creating a harmony, a symphony where we can all work together, because the importance is about the music and what we play out. Each instrument is important in that collective, but how we come together harmoniously and create that music that becomes that invitation, that inspiration, is how well are we going to work together. Right.
Yes, that goes back to recognizing people have different strengths, as you mentioned a minute ago, and different gifts. There are many gifts that pass me by. I'm the only person I've ever heard of who was asked to lip sync in the second grade Christmas pageant. I'm still trying to get over that. So I can't sing. I can't sing a note. And other people are gifted at that and may not be gifted at something that I may have a gift for.
Exactly.
And working together to come up with the best overall results. That's the key thing. And I think that sometimes people are defensive when they feel like, oh, I'm not good enough in that particular area. And if we all focus on our strengths and sharing our strengths and lifting the people up who don't have our strengths and letting them lift us up on the strengths they have, then we can all succeed better.
And really, ultimately, when you succeed, I succeed. When I succeed, someone else succeeds. I mean, that really is the beautiful vibration of love, is you can't knowingly hurt anyone because you'll hurt yourself. You want to see people step into that light of love and joy and of living and of purpose. And it is an exuberant feeling. So instead of there's two words I hate: competition and comparison, because comparison kills. You forget your own beautiful instrument. You're just trying to play exactly like everyone else. We don't need any droids, thank you. There's enough out there already. We've already got the robotic instruments. It's called a cell phone, which is already making us mindless. But it is about stepping into our own beautiful uniqueness and polishing it, and being the best that we can be. And it's not about competing with someone else. Somebody else may be playing the same instrument as you, but you're going to bring your heart and soul to it. And it's going to play that way, and they're going to play it that way. And that's the difference. So that's what makes it so beautifully unique and intricate and personal and also invitational.
Yes, and comparing ourselves to others is not the way we should live.
No.
I believe the only comparison should be from who we are today to who we were yesterday. And every day we should try to be a better person than we were the day before. And I liked Adam Smith, the economist back in the 17th, 18th century. He talked about the invisible hand in economics. And I believe it works in life also, that when people are pursuing their individual interest, that this invisible hand brings us together. And you do one thing and I do another. You may make shoes and I may make pots and pans, but by us both pursuing our individual interest and then having commerce between us, we both benefit each other. And it's the same in our personalities as well. And I see these governments trying to make everyone equal. And to me, I don't care who the government is. I don't care who's leading it. There's no way they can make us all equal. All people have to do is look at their children. And if you have more than one child, there's nothing as a parent you can do to make the two children equal.
No.
How can a government make everyone in a country equal?
But I've got three, and each one of them, they have some commonalities, right, which are beautiful, but each one of them are different people, different strengths with different abilities. And that's what is so beautiful. You know, same father, same genes, same everything else, but different personalities. And that goes a lot to the time you were born and this and that. It's all the other intricate stuff that's there. But it makes it exciting because you're seeing things through their eyes. You know, when your parents say, no, you've got to do it this way. No, I've always done it that way. You've got to do it that way. No, let the child discover the way they want to do it, right? You can say, can I help you? Can I show you? Let them do it their way. My son at 15 decided he was going to take over the cooking. Thank you. Yes, go ahead. The dishes and the pots and pans were to the ceiling, but he cooked a wonderful meal and now he has a restaurant, right? So it's let them discover who they really are. And I think one of the huge problems we have in society today, why it's so utterly dysfunctional, is two things. One, I have a whole series of the Forgotten Children series, where there are so many children that are trapped in some sorrow, whether it's abuse or neglect, a lack of love. You know, there's so many, and that wounded child goes with them, becomes the dysfunctional adult. But it is also the fact that we don't encourage our children to be the gift they are, to get behind them and go, oh, this one has a tendency to build. This one loves to draw. This one loves music. Let's encourage it and see where it goes. We're so dictatorial. And again, comparison, you're not like the Joneses, son. You know, no, they're your son. Your son is different. Encourage them in the gift that they are. And I think we will see a better society as adults.
Absolutely. I believe encouragement's the greatest gift we can give anyone. And I celebrate it on the 17th of every month. And I try to get people to encourage at least one person a day.
Yeah.
And if everyone would encourage at least one person a day, we could make a huge difference in people's mental health, their pursuit of their dreams, the number of achievements, because too often people are discouraged by not only their friends and family, but by the culture itself, who tries to point out how you cannot achieve your dreams. I always look at, there's one of the civil rights icons in the US that says a dream denied is a dream delayed is a dream denied. Well, I disagree with that 100%. I believe, and I've had personal examples, that a dream delayed is not a dream denied. Sometimes it comes later and is much more successful than it would have been if you achieved it when you first dreamed it. And so encouragement is so important to help people to realize that it may not be the right time for you to do this right now. Don't give up on it. Keep doing the other things that may prepare you for that particular dream.
Oh, totally, totally. I started this coming up 10 years ago at the age of 57. Somebody asked me to be on their podcast network, and I didn't even know what a podcast was. And I was thrown in at the deep end for 13 months of doing live shows. And it became a really good education because everything that could go wrong, right? But it also became that ignition inside of me of everything that I've done in my life has prepared me for this. This is where I'm meant to be. Now, June is 9 years of my own network. I've done over 2,500 shows. And my shows aren't 10 minutes, they're an hour plus. And I have met some incredible people like yourself who are out there serving humanity. And that is what we need to understand. We are all here to be of service to one another. Every single one of us needs to contribute. It's not about what you get, it's about what you give. You receive abundance through what you give. Maybe not from that person, maybe from somewhere else, but the giving is always the receiving. And just knowing that you've made somebody's day, or somebody's pivoted in a better direction, or somebody's been looking for that knowledge and they didn't know where to find it. It's wonderful to know that you're on that track where you are being of service to someone. But I had to wait for 57 to get there.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean
Well,
I
I
didn't
think,
do other things in the meantime, but everything prepared me for this time.
well, I think that's exactly right. And similarly, and I've seen this, I mean, I spent a career in the corporate world, a corporate executive, et cetera. And what's interesting is how we can be pigeonholed by people who knew us in previous roles.
Yes.
And so some of the people I've known for a lifetime almost, they have the hardest time seeing me as I am today. But those things prepared me, as you say. I always joke about my high school English teacher would faint if she thought I read a book, much less wrote 8 books. And so I never dreamed of writing one,
Right.
much less 8 now and
Yes.
counting. And so it's interesting but those other things prepared me for that.
Yes.
The business world prepared me for the book writing, for speaking, doing advising, trying to serve people in different ways based on all those experiences.
Yes. I mean, life experience is your treasure chest. Mm-hmm. It really is. You can go into that chest at any time and pull out something you learned years ago and go, oh, this would be applicable here. Right? It is. And yeah, and I hear what you say, that, that people get stuck on a stereotype and just think that's all you are. And then suddenly you're doing something different. Well, that doesn't compute. Weren't they that? And it's like, please allow people to evolve. Please allow people to discover who they are at any age in their life. The youngest person I've interviewed was 10, and she'd written a book, 365 Days of Gratitude with a Positive Attitude, right? And each day was just what she was grateful for. And then 91, who had started her own TV station and a couple of years beforehand taken a new lover, So, it's never too late and it's never too early. It's where is the passion and the conviction when you need to do something, when you've got something that you feel is important that you need to share, you will find an avenue in which to do it.
Well, that's exactly true. And I illustrated both examples like that in my writing. I met a 13-year-old girl who was getting an award for her second book a couple of years ago, and she'd written 3 now. And then one of the stories I love to tell, it's never too late to make a difference. I like to tell the story of Laura Ingalls Wilder from Little House on the Prairie. And so when my daughter was 7, we were looking for some decent family television for her. And we looked at that. Well, she saw the little girl, and I saw my great grandmother, who was a year younger than Laura Ingalls Wilder and who lived till I was 9 years old. So I had a relationship with her. So when I watched the show with my daughter, I saw my great grandmother's little girl.
Yeah.
And I started looking up Laura Ingalls Wilder's story. And I always thought that she wrote those stories as a diary. But what I discovered was she didn't start writing until her husband died, and she wrote magazine articles, and her daughter begged her to write the stories that she told her of her childhood. She published her first book at 65, Inspiration for You. She published her 9th and last book at 76. She died at 90 years old. 17 years after she died, the television show came out. So there was no way she could conceive the impact. And that show runs nearly 24 hours a day now.
Yes.
And so when we do different efforts, and I don't look, people ask me how the books are selling, things like that. Well, my gauge is not just book sales only.
Right.
Because we don't know the length or breadth of impact of the things that we do that could go beyond our lifetimes and how they may happen. Our only objective is, when we hear that call and that passion, to create and provide and serve, and then let the score be rung up by what I call the man upstairs.
Yes. Yeah. Everything has its time and place, right? And it's the same with the podcasting. I have had occasionally feedback how a particular show changed someone's life, or I've had it a couple of times, but it saved their lives, or this show had such an impact on the point of view that they went in a totally different direction. I do on average 8 shows a week, so I do not get feedback on every show. It's rather like, you know, a child that you prepare for life, and then once it's out there, you know, I promote it and I get it out there and I share it. Or when somebody on social media says, I'm having this issue, and I've got a show for you, they can listen to it or not listen to it, but it's out of our hands then. It's in the ether then. And I always think like the teacher will come when the student is ready. So I often think a podcast will come when that person is ready to receive that knowledge. But it's out of our control who reads your books, who's listened to these shows. But when you do get feedback now and again, you go, good, I'm on the right track.
Well, yes. And your shows, for example, who knows in the future how you may slice and dice and repurpose the information and repackage it in different ways and put it in different mediums that may not even be invented yet.
Right, exactly.
To share with people so that people can take certain portions of multiple shows that come on certain topics and get that all in a condensed format.
That would be fabulous.
Creating the content is the key thing.
It is.
Because, and the lesson, the way I learned this is thinking about material that I create. And I was thinking about the music industry. So you think about maybe one of your favorite bands. Could be the Beatles or the Beach Boys or anybody else. And you think about one of their top songs. Well, how many different albums did they publish that one song on?
Yes.
And I guarantee you it was several. And so too often when we create material, we think, well, that we created it and that's it. And it's in one place, but it doesn't have to be. No.
And again, that goes to somebody else's perspective of that song. Oh, I hear it this way, right? And that's, you know, even when you know, people read your books, they're going to read it from their own identity, right? It's speaking for them, about them, and that's when you know you've got a good book. When a book leaves me thinking, where at some point of the day or during a conversation it pops into my head, then I know it's had an impact. Right? When I can't even remember what it is, then I know it was just an entertainment for a little while and out it goes. But when it's a book that really, I relate to that. Oh, I wish I could do that. Oh, I never knew you could do that. You know, and it's something that becomes a tutorial in many, many ways. But it's more exciting than, you know, classroom.
You didn't tell me what type of book you were writing, but I can tell you that you have multiple books that are already written just from the comments you make in your podcast, just transcribing that and trying to figure out how you'd like to share those messages and just taking your comments. You've already written multiple books.
I know, actually, yes. I do my own show every week, which is Sarah's View of Life. And it's just me and my perspective and my view of life. And I have 360 shows there. And I was going to, for my first book, is kind of take a correlation of those stories and put it together. But actually people said, no, we want to hear about you, Sarah, because you're always interviewing other people. We want to hear about you because there's snippets of me that come out in a show and people want that. And it's harder to write about yourself. How I'm actually doing it, because I can't do it, just write it about me. It's going to be my angel's perspective. Conversations with my angels and their view on my life.
That's a good way. Yes, it's much more difficult to share pieces of our lives than it is to share something of others.
Yes.
But I think, and I've done this in the Navigating Life's Journey and Common Sense and Uncommon Times books, because those books all have chapters of common sense principles, but I'll share other people's stories, and then I may use some illustrations from my own life as well. Some of them have been things that I wouldn't have admitted when my parents were still alive, but I've put out to share with others now, for example. So doing it that way is much easier, and it comes across less like you're beating your chest, because that's not the way I want to come across.
Right.
I'm just somebody on a path. I may be behind one person and ahead of another, and just trying to be a link and share things to help people in front or behind me.
Right. And I think, you know, what we're inspired of is when we know people have gone through struggles, and yet they've chosen to live a positively abundant life, that they've chosen to be of service and caring and love, despite the journey that they've been through. I think it becomes a real reflection on people and go, well, what am I feeding? What am I feeding here? Am I really that trauma that happened to me? No, it happened to you.
Yes.
Who you become because of it. That's where you discover your strength, your courage, your abilities. And when you're willing to go through that process and you become what you are meant to become, you'll realize whatever happened to you was that catalyst for you to become the person you are here today. And that doesn't mean that you're not going to have another knock along the way, but it does mean you're going to weather it a lot better, and you're going to be open to receive what it really means.
Absolutely. And I always share that my 23-year-old daughter now, the crisis of the moment for her that just tears her up is something that just rolls off my shoulder, and probably roll off your shoulder because we've been through other things.
Yes.
But every time we go through one of those, as you say, it strengthens us. And they always talk about calm waters do not a good sailor make. And that's so true. It's the confidence that we get, the experience to know that we can get through it. And I think back to my grandparents and when I was younger and how they would never get excited about anything because they'd been through world wars, depression, the 1918 pandemic of that time, so many other things that they had been through, that the challenges that I was facing was nothing to them.
Right.
And so I'm trying to become that type of person. I always talk about we stand on their broad shoulders of those who came before us. And we have to broaden our shoulders to prepare for people to stand on them that are coming behind us.
And, you know, and I talk a great deal about, you know, elders and youth. And the youth can learn so much from the elders. And the elders around the youth rejuvenates them.
Yes.
Reinvigorates them. And there always seems to be such a divide, you know, so especially in Western society. Oh, you've reached a certain age, out to pasture. You know, you're no good anymore. And I would say predominantly people that I've interviewed are 50 plus. A lot of young ones now coming up, which is wonderful, but, you know, 50 plus, because they've had that 2x4, they've had those lessons, they've stepped into their meaningful purpose. But I think it's imperative that we do merge all the ages together, because we all learn so much. When you're around that exuberant youth where they feel they can do anything, you know, absolutely, the universe is the limit, right? And that invigorates us. But at the same time, when they learn the things that you have faced, how did you do it? I did this, I did that, and this happened. And it then becomes a kind of a skill in their toolbox of life, that when they hit something, you know, it'll help them.
Yes, the way I say that is, if hindsight's 20/20 and experience is the best teacher, then why won't the people who have neither listen to the people who have both?
Right, exactly. I mean, that's just common sense. And talking about that, you've got this book here, Navigating Life's Journey, Common Sense in Uncommon Times. Tell us about that.
Well, and it was a follow-up to Conquering Life's Course, which was the first volume of Common Sense in Chaotic Times. Both of those books have 40 bite-sized chapters. They run about 800 words or so. They can be read in any sequence. And it's all based on life experience and life lessons of other people and myself, whereas we look at common sense that we may not see today, for example. And so we look at people who have overcome challenges. Michael Atkins, who started out as a minority in Chicago, was a janitor in his school, ended up becoming a principal in a school after being on welfare and growing up with a single mother. And he was taught, don't let anybody else write your story, write your own story.
Yes.
And so trying to share these particular examples that people could look at and say, that makes sense. Here's a good illustration. If he can do it, I can do it.
Exactly. The inspiration begets invitation, right? Absolutely. Tell us about a few of your other books.
Well, and the first one that I did, and I never had a dream of doing it, was, I got to figure out where my finger is here, the Volunteer Handbook. And I had had some success leading nonprofit organizations and had been teaching nonprofit leaders. And what I found was that the success, I did it for 6 years. And what I found was the successors to the people I taught never were taught the lessons I taught their predecessors. And I said, well, I need to document this so people can read it on their own.
Right. Yes.
And I never dreamed of writing one book. But as I mentioned to you earlier, the first book's always the hardest, because until you do it, like so many other life experiences,
Yes.
you don't have the confidence that you can do it. And so the second book was Surviving Grief by God's Grace, about the loss of my son. And that was 14 years later.
Yes.
And I thought that would be the last book. And while I was promoting that on radio and different programs, trying to share that path of faith to overcome that challenge, I was asked at a personal development course, what one lesson did you learn from your first job? Well, I went home that night. I couldn't think of one lesson I learned as an 11-year-old paper boy. I thought of 14. I wrote them down. I put them in a drawer, and I left it in the drawer for 4 years. And I came back and wrote the 4-letter word that builds character, because these lessons I learned as an 11-year-old affected my entire corporate career. And we don't let children work enough these days. And kids can do more than we give them credit for. And even if they stumble and fall and have to overcome tough things, as 11-year-olds standing on a doorstep to collect a paper subscription money every week, that was intimidating. But it helped teach me how to interact with adults and how to ask for money and things of that nature. So that was another great lesson that I try to share with people for their children and grandchildren. Here's something, it's important for them to learn these lifelong lessons. Then I wrote The Master Sales Secret, was the first volume I thought of, multiple volumes on sales and sales management. But then I had a friend ask me, there's 1,000 sales books. You need to share this story of going through a divorce, 2 heart procedures, and a cancer diagnosis in 10 months. And so that was Unwelcome Opportunity that I put out 3 or 4 years ago as well. And that was a faith-based book, because any one of those challenges could have led to a withdrawal or just becoming negative. And I know people, and I'm sure you do as well, who have let their challenges push them into a negative lifestyle.
Consume them. Yeah.
Yes. And so that was what that particular volume was written for.
So you've really kind of got a book for almost every situation.
Well, it's interesting because people ask me what genre I write in. and when I speak, people ask me what I speak about. And it's very hard for people to figure out how to best utilize me because of the variety of different experiences I've been through.
I mean, I have 18 genres here, but, the common denominator is based on contribution. It is, stepping into our ownership of our own choices, right? And coming from a place of love. And so when you find your common denominator, it doesn't matter what you write about.
Yes,
right? Because the compass is there, right? And the compass is based in faith, whatever the faith might be. And that is your guiding system. So to have different genres, that just means there's different experiences that you're sharing in life. And this whole thing, again, pigeonholing people, well, what is your show about? And which one? Because I have it on business, I have it on faith, I have it on this and that, on health, numerous, right? And sometimes I get guests that really cover a few genres, in one show. And that's really what it is like. We're not one size fits all. We're not one little letter in the alphabet. And the whole experience is to be the whole of this alphabet. But, it comes in what's really going in the book. What does the fundamentals of the book?
That's precisely it. And as we talked about before going on air, I don't like the term self-help. and I like personal growth better. Life's Daily Treasure is not a devotional book, but people want to call it a devotional book, but it does not follow the true format of a devotional. And so the people who've read it rave about it and they love it. And every day they love looking at it for a minute or two and starting their day. But the literary people who look at it and can't fit it into a devotional category can't appreciate it as much because it doesn't fit in any category that's out there right now.
Let's throw the categories out. Let's throw them out, right? Really, it's about good vibrations. The Beach Boys had it. It's about good vibrations, about, choosing to look at things from the sunny side of the street. And that doesn't mean that you don't see the dark clouds or you don't see the hate and the war and the everything else. You see that, but you choose to see the good in things and what is possible even in the darkness.
The other thing that's so gratifying for me, people want to say, well, who's your audience? And they want you to pinpoint it down to an age group. Well, I get positive feedback.
To listen.
I mean, I spoke at a college campus a few weeks ago. They love Life's Daily Treasure. I have elderly people who love it. Everyone in between love it and are grateful for the inspiration and motivation they get out of it. But if I tried to focus it and write it for one age group, then I would have left out all the other people. And I try to do things that are timeless. I truly believe that this volume, somebody could pick it up 50 years from now and they could get the same benefits out of it someone today could. Because I'm a firm believer that human nature does not change. And if human nature doesn't change, then that means good, positive messages will be impactful 50, 100 years from now, just as they will be today.
Well, I'm an optimist, and I think the pendulum is going to swing that way to everybody raising their good vibrations. And I believe that the discord and the war and the hate and the pain that's out there today is the last ditch effort to hold on to misery, where there are so many good people who've changed the vibrational level up to another hertz, which scientifically people have measured the love vibration at a higher frequency. And the higher frequency we are in, the better it is for our own health, for our planet, for our psyche, for each other. And there are so many people doing this work, just like yourself. And it is reaching people and it's lifting them up. And we're in that higher vibration. We're not going to feed that hate or that war. We're not going to feed that greed. We're already calling people out on it. We're already saying enough is enough. We're just not going to support the hate anymore. It is happening. But the people that live in that hate zone, it's like, well, I've got to scream louder for my voice to be heard. And we're just saying, la, 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 la. We're not listening.
Well, and I would agree with everything about increasing the hertz and giving the positive messages. I would love to think that we could wipe out every bit of hate and any people coming behind us who have that, but it hasn't happened over thousands of years.
Yeah, but doesn't mean it can't happen.
It doesn't mean it can't. But my concern is there'll always be some folks like that who need what we're doing. Although not all of them may.
Well, for some people thrive on misery. Some people thrive. They do thrive on it, or they thrive on sickness. And but when you're looking at the general population, everybody's tired of it, and they know that people are going back to simple things. People are looking at what really is the joy in my life. And again, the gift of COVID for many was I got to stay at home with my family. I got to truly understand why I had kids in the first place, or rekindled with my spouse, or looked at my career and do I want to work 60 hours a week, and it became that reset to people really prioritizing what really is important. And really what is important in any relationship of anything is the relationship you have with yourself. And you need to find that self-love within you. That kindness and self-love needs to be given to you because that is what you're going to exude out to everyone else.
Yeah, so I agree. I think that the COVID period has given us that opportunity, and many people have taken it to refocus their lives into more balance. And balance is extremely important. As we talked about, money can throw us out of balance. Other things can throw us out of balance also. But that positivity, I think, can help us. I think many people are doing it. I'm hoping your work, my work, and others are helping that. And there's nothing I'd like better than to know that everyone on this planet would be positive. And I think the better we encourage people to pursue their individual dreams and happiness, the more of those people there will be.
You made a choice, despite
Yes.
what was happening to you, that you weren't going to give in to the negativity, that you were
Yes.
going to find a way through that through your faith or just through optimism. You made that choice. And everything we do in life is a choice. Even abstaining from making a choice is a choice. So why
Yes.
can we not choose to be light, to be loving, to be caring, to be compassionate? Why can we not look at the good side of ourselves and take off the perception that others may have on us? That's their opinion. You're never going to change it. It's really got nothing to do with you, right? How do you feel about yourself? Do you
Yes.
care about who you are and what you're contributing? Are you striving for more in your form of service, in your contribution? The more we step into that, the more meaningful our lives will be. The more we resonate on that positive vibration, the more it uplifts and invites other people. So just keep on
Absolutely.
doing what you're doing. Keep on writing what you're writing, because it's serving people in that. Just look what he's gone through, yet he has chosen to write these things on how to navigate it, how to look at things, as I said, from the sunny side of the street. You're not ignoring the darkness. The darkness grabbed hold of you. You just pried it apart and said, no, you're not going to consume me.
You're correct. We all have choices every day,
Every
no
day.
matter what we've been through.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got to resist the culture and our governments trying to victimize us
Mm-hmm.
and make us dependent on them, because all we do is sell our souls and our futures in that situation. Whereas when we take the opportunity to define ourselves and take that opportunity each day to live our dreams and pursue it, we want to accomplish all our goals.
No.
And we're all going to leave this planet with something unfinished.
Yes.
And some people think, well, if I can't finish it, why should I do it?
Right.
Well, we don't have the choice of when we leave.
Right.
And so the only thing we can do is go full speed ahead and do as much as we can, realizing there'll be something left behind.
And maybe it's
when
just
we
to pass
leave.
on the baton.
Exactly.
You started it for someone else to pick it up. I'm 67. I have no idea how long I'm going to keep this up, but I'm hoping this is my legacy, that somebody else will pick it up and keep it going. I've got 3,000 shows here of wisdom shared from people like yourself who have gone through it, who've shared how they did it, how we can step into the next phase of our lives. This is golden nuggets, as I call it, the orchard of wisdom, right? So one doesn't want to just throw this away. It's not, well, it might be the end of me, but it doesn't have to be the end of this.
No, it's going to go on for years. And one of these days, there'll be a searchable capability within your shows for a word search within the audios, just like there is for Word documents now, for example, to do a word search. And I can just see somebody researching your material and doing word searches and pulling pieces and nuggets out of different shows for serving other people and benefiting other people. And to me, there's so much excitement based upon content availability, and not thinking about what we can do with it today, but knowing it's captured and can be used in the future. And so when I see, we look back 200 years and what do we study? We studied letters that people wrote in cursive. Although no one can write cursive now. No. Well, very few people write letters these days.
I know.
They do some emails, but very few people do much in depth. And so any of the positive contributions of content that we create in depth will be legacies 100, 200 years from now.
Yeah. And that, that the books will be something, oh gosh, I wish I could write like this. And well, why can't you? Well, I don't know how. Well, learn. Because when a book inspires you, and because I've got something inside of me that I want to say, and like, I'm sorry, I pray to God there isn't going to be emoji books out there. I know there's already been an emoji movie, but please, it used to be when you did a presentation, you had 2 minutes to capture your audience, to capture their interest. Now it seems to be 2 seconds. And
Yes, very
I'm
good.
not serving those 2-second people. I am not serving them. I'm serving the people who really are hungry for knowledge and wisdom and really want to be inspired in depth. And, I get, oh, no, your show should only be 10 minutes. I go, nope, nope, because I
Well,
consider that an insult.
I mean, I would encourage you on your book, as well as I would encourage anyone else on whatever you want to work on.
Mm-hmm.
Take whatever time you have each day, and if you have 30 seconds or a minute and you get an idea, write
Yeah.
that note down and
Yeah.
put it someplace in a file that goes toward that particular work.
Yes.
I get ideas driving down the road and sitting different places, sitting in church, other places. I'll have an idea and I'll write it down, and it may end up being a chapter of a book, or it may end up being a short video that I do, something. But when you have those ideas, capture them.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
easier to put them together later than if you don't capture them.
Right. Yes.
And
The
none of us can
headliners.
count on tomorrow.
No.
So we need to capture everything we can as it happens.
Yes. Yes. That's actually how I do my shows. I have a particular topic, a few words, and I press record or I write it out first, or I press record, and then basically what comes out is meant to come out. So, and that I think is also something that we need to look at in life. There is no wrong or right way in order to express yourself, as long as it isn't violent. And it's, if you wish to just audio it, or if you are a person that likes to write it down and edit it before you speak it, it doesn't matter. It is about
Yes.
expression. I had a young poet on the other day that his book has got page numbers in it, but there's no titles on any chapter or on any page. Each page stands alone in its poetry for what it is. And that's okay. Other people may even draw and have few less words, and the pictures will speak the volumes. It doesn't matter. Please don't compare where other people are doing it. Doing the way that it calls from within you, right? And allow yourself to follow that path and see where that creativity goes, because you didn't know you were going to write 8 books, but you allowed yourself to get in there and do it. And look, how many more are going to be written from now on?
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, exactly.
General George Patton, talking about leadership, and this applies to what you were just mentioning also. He said, never tell anyone how to do something. Tell them what you want done and let them figure out how to do it, and you'll be amazed at the creativity that comes out.
Absolutely.
And it's the same thing with how we do things. And again, most of the stuff I've done has been unique. The general format of the writing style I like is based on a book I read nearly 50 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I liked the style of that particular book because it did short chapters, 800 words. And that serves me very well, because I can tell people on most of my books, if you just want to take 5 minutes and read a chapter, that's all you have to do. And each chapter stands on their own. Pick a topic you like, read it. And then when you have 5 minutes, read another one. And so it's not like reading Gone with the Wind or War and Peace, where you have to spend hours and hours and hours to get something out of it. Yeah. And so I think that fits into our society better now than what previous generations created.
Yeah, no, that actually, I'm more of an article writer than I am, big chapter, and it's a good point. Just write for where your strength is. Right, you can have multiple chapters in there, but not each chapter has to be a novel in itself.
That's exactly true, and it's interesting in that only a few of the books I have a front to back sequence, and the rest of them are where somebody can just dive in any place and read and go from that point and do however they want, whatever sequence. Even Life's Daily Treasure, even though it starts January 1st to December 31st, when someone buys it, they can start on that day. They don't have to wait until January 1st to start. They can pick it up any day they want to and take off.
I like picking up a book and go, what do I need to know today? And just opening it up. And generally that page, what that is about, right there is where I need to be today. I just, yes, okay. Mm-hmm. And it's just an affirmation of where you're at. And so I love it when you go to something, because that's the information you need at that moment. So as you said, you could do it from every date, but you could also open it up because maybe that's what you need to know in that moment.
Well, absolutely. And one of the things that I hope and people have believed and told me is with Life's Daily Treasure that today you may read today's page. A year from now, you may go back and read that same page, but get something totally different out of it.
Absolutely. Yes.
And because it only takes a minute or so each day, there's people that say, I'll look at this every day, every year, because I think it can help me every day, every year going forward.
Right, because you're not the same person as you were last year.
Exactly.
Right, and now it's going to have a different meaning to you.
Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr.
Yeah.
A man's mind, once expanded by a new idea, cannot return to its previous state. So,
exactly.
As I tell people, there's 2,196 entries in here. Only one could totally change your life. You could read one that totally changed your direction and life out of the whole book. That's all it takes.
Which one it is.
With this book or any other book.
Yes.
It's all it takes is one idea to change our direction.
Yes. There's many a book I've read where there's one particular scene, you know, that has been the revelation, that has been the one that I keep referring back to, you know, the one that meant so much to me. And it's, because it becomes something that kind of it opens up a door for you. You're never going to forget that door opener.
Well, I'll use an example of a movie then. So I love Robert Duvall, and he did the movie Broken Trail years ago, where he took his nephew on a trail drive to teach him the business before he passed. And they had calamity after calamity. And the nephew at one time said, "This drive's getting less profitable every day." And Robert Duvall looked at him, he said, "Son, you never measure wealth using money." And that was such a profound line. Because our wealth is, even though I have a treasure chest with money on here, it's not the money that measures our wealth. No. It's the totality of our life and where we go with it.
A very quick story to end up with is my son has a restaurant, and he did a Thanksgiving dinner for all his staff last year, and I was there. And I've always done a gratitude thing when we have an event. What are you grateful for right now? And we did this around the table, and all of these people had worked through the COVID, where this changes, that changes, this changes, and a lot of the staff had come from other restaurants where they could actually make more money. But what came out of it is, I'm grateful for being here because I'm seen and I'm heard, right? And I feel a part of the family. I feel I belong. And that's truly, as I said at the end of it, as some of you may be making less money, and money, you understand now, is not the true enrichment of the abundance of life.
Yeah.
Community is.
Yeah.
That togetherness is. And it was beautiful to see. We were all in tears because people really literally just really spoke from their hearts and souls, and it was beautiful. And they were grateful for each other because they created community. And I think that's something we need to go back to. This solar me, myself, and I, has shown us to be so disconnected. Energy loves to flow. The wind loves to gather. The leaves don't want to be just one leaf going. We need to get back into community and understand that multiple energies will create things and make things happen.
Well, that's a reflection on your son's leadership, because leadership sets that opportunity, and leadership sets that example, and it brings people together.
Yes.
And as Tom Landry said, a leader is a person who gets people to do what they don't want to do to obtain what they want to obtain. And those people came in there for one purpose, but they found something totally different. And your son's leadership and example, to me, is what that reflects, because without good leadership, you would not have that situation.
We're seeing difference in leadership today, aren't we? Where it is more coming from the heart. They say it doesn't matter who you are or what you're doing. If people can't relate to you, why should they relate to your business? If they can't buy you, why should they buy from you? And we really want to know the people we're dealing with are real, that they really are coming from the heart, that they really do care, and they're not just in it for the buck. Because we're so tired of that, aren't we? We, as consumers, we want to know you see us, you hear us, and I'll come back to you for the pleasant experience.
Well, that's exactly true. People buy trust first.
Yes.
They don't trust a person or an organization. They'll never do business with them.
Right.
And so you have to establish trust first. And to me, servant leadership and leadership by example is the best type, because then you're putting your clients and people ahead of yourself.
Yeah.
And a good leader recognizes that if the clients and the employees succeed, you will be recognized for your leadership. The poor leaders always think of their own self-interest first, and they end up not succeeding because the clients and employees don't succeed.
Right.
And so, and I don't know why people cannot realize that, because there's whole industries on leadership training now, but yet there are certain people who just cannot figure that out and who try the selfish leadership style. And we see failure after failure from that style.
Well, narcissism and narcissistic people have no empathy, have no compassion.
Yes.
And it is all about them. And they don't care how they get there or who they walk over to get there, as long as they get there. And we've seen a lot of narcissistic leadership, and it tears apart. It does not build.
Exactly. So, it doesn't matter what kind of organization it is. It doesn't matter what level the leader's at. It's all based on the leadership style and where the leader's heart's coming from, and the leader building people and organizations and serving others. That's the only style that gives long-term growth and success.
Inclusivity.
And I've seen it. I've seen it over the years where one generation will build a business, and their successor children will come in, and it will go because they didn't appreciate what it took and how the leadership style was that built the business, and they'll end up running it in the ground because it's all about them.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, another thing I have to boost my son on is what he's doing right now is he's donating the entire week of profit to all of his staff. So whatever profit comes in, he's going to let the community know, come on down, come on by. They've just opened up to full seating again. And so he said the whole week of profit is going to be divided amongst all of his staff as a thank you for getting through a rough time.
Well, I think that's a terrific example, because if you look at the cost of employee turnover, it's huge.
Yes.
And so if that builds loyalty and it keeps some of those employees there a year or two or more longer, it will more than pay for itself back. Plus, by saying that to the community, that also tells the community something that's very positive as well, and sets an example to other leaders in the communities and other businesses also. So I applaud that. I think that's a terrific thing to do.
No, and that's, that's because he doesn't look upon his staff. It's when you're there working, he expects you to work, but he also understands you're a human being.
Yes.
Right. And he will treat you as the human being. If something's going on, he wants to know, what can he do? If you need a little time off because something's happening, that's fine. But he really, it's his restaurant is known for him and his heart. And it is a reflection of that. And I'm very proud of that. And I think it is an example. I think how all leadership should be. If you're not coming from the heart, then what are you doing?
And the other thing is, it shows that he respects those other people as his equals, maybe not equals in the organization of the business, but equals as people.
Yes.
And that's the main thing. If people know that you respect them as equals, even though you're at a higher place in the business, they will be much more loyal than if they think that you believe you're a better person just because you're at a higher level in the organization.
Well, that actually reflected this last year when when the COVID broke out, he just snapped his Achilles. And he literally is in a plaster, and I went over to look after him, and 3 days later, COVID and everything, gets shut down, and he went into just take out. And there he is at the till with his leg up on a chair, taking orders, and then he had a breakup, and then he's just navigating constantly the open, close. And he just basically at one point kind of, I would say call it a breakdown, but just, a shutdown where it was all too much. It was all too much. His staff turned around to him and said, go and spend some time on yourself. Go and do something for yourself. We've got this. If we really need you, we'll call you, but you're not going to be here 24/7. Go. and he felt he could leave them. You know, he finally realized he could leave them to do the job, right? But he just being so caught up, and it was them saying, you don't have to be here every minute of every day. Go and spend some time on yourself. And that goes into the balance we're talking about, right? In everything in life, you must have balance.
It goes into balance and the leadership again,
Yeah.
because if the employees were not loyal and didn't respect him,
Yep.
they would not do that. And so that's where you sow the seeds. In the military, they always talk about, if the officers take care of the men during peace, men and women now, men and women during peacetime, the men and women will take care of the officers when the fighting starts.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's all about respect, isn't it? You know, self-respect, respect of one another, looking at each other as equals. Doesn't matter what your job is or what your position is, but as equal human beings, and being compassionate towards one another. It really, honestly, is really quite simple. And if we could get off our high horse and stop looking at the importance of money and how many followers or, you know, prestige and the importance of, we'd realize the importance is in the everyday relationships that we have.
Well, in these life experiences, and the toughest life experiences help us. And one of the things that frustrates me is when I see in the US, and you probably have the same problem, politicians who've done nothing in their life except go to college. They go work as a staff member in a political office, then they run for office, and then they're there for a whole lifetime. And when they pass, their spouse or kid takes their position, and they have no perspective on real life.
None.
But yet they think they know everything. And it transcends political parties. It's an entitlement mentality of people versus a servant leadership role of citizen representation that I know our government was founded upon, and I think is much better and healthier for each person as well as our entire country.
Everything needs to be reset as far as I'm concerned with politics. Politics is, you know, has become a surge because it's all about self-interest and not representation of the people. And it's become about that power at all costs. I don't care if it's right or not, I'm not going to pass it because, and that it needs to be held accountable. We've done too much protection over politics. Instead, it should be like any other job. If you're not performing, you should be out.
Well, as I say, we in the US, we have a government by career politicians for career lives, administered by career bureaucrats, and covered up and protected by career media people.
And you know, that's something we have to do sometimes when things get a bit too much. It's okay, just go find somewhere to have a good scream, right?
Yes.
On a positive note, how do people get hold of your book? How do they get hold of you? How do they get hold of all of your books?
Well, that's a great question. I appreciate that. I mean, everything's on Amazon and all booksellers, and some of the books are on audio, and nearly all of them are on Kindle. richardbattle.com is my website, and especially the hardback version of Life's Daily Treasure is $15 cheaper than it is on Amazon. And everything that comes out of richardbattle.com is signed copies as well. They can email me, richard@richardbattle.com, and we enjoy speaking to any of your audience.
And of course, all of your books are on Amazon as well, right?
Yes, and all bookstores are available.
Great, wonderful. Well, you know, it's great to interview somebody who has such a diverse life. You know, you've had your old cosmic 2x4 more than once, but you chose to get back up. You chose to look at, you know, what now? You know, where can I go from here? What did this mean? And, you know, to explore the options and just explore the journey. Life is about taking the journey. It's not about the destination, right? You know, every chapter in your book, you could have a million chapters. I don't care. It's just know that whatever's happening, if that's just one chapter, you don't have to get stuck in it. You can write another chapter. Keep the wonderment alive. Keep the optimism alive. Keep believing that things will get better, can get better, and you can make them better, right?
Yes,
we all get
absolutely.
knocked down. It's about how do we get back up? That's
exactly
the important thing.
That's absolutely true.
Look at our athletes. The first thing they have to do is learn how to fall. And when you look at the skiing and they're jumping at those great heights and they come down and they fall and you're seeing them sliding down this ice, and it's like, your heart is in your mouth, and you go, oh, and then they just get up and brush it all off, and they had to learn to fall.
Well, that starts with little kids when they're walking.
Mm-hmm.
So we all learn how to fall. The question is, what do we do when we fall?
Yes. Do we just sit there and cry and wait for someone to pick us up? Or do we get back up on our own? Right?
Yes, that's exactly true. And little kids learn that very easily because they start crying and see how parents respond.
Right.
And how parents respond dictates a lot of that future child's development.
Right, exactly. I have an 11-month-old grandson right now who's in that process of learning to walk and falls. And it's, when he falls down, I make fun of it. Yay! Come on, back up. But yeah, and I think that's another thing. Learn from my kids. Learn from the babies in discovery of everything and the wonderment. It is so just intriguing just to see him in his own little world. Leave him alone and let him play. The facial expressions that come over, I have no idea what's going through his head, but he's engrossed in something, right? And it's wonderful to see. Stop looking at, oh, they should be this by now, and they should be that by now. Just let them be.
Yes, yes.
Well, thank you so much. It's been an absolute delight having you here. I'd love to have you back again down the road.
Sarah, my pleasure. I'd love to come back anytime.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Folks, please go out and get his book. The treasure of life is really in the living. So Life's Daily Treasure, a wonderful way of each day, you kind of doing an affirmation in your life. And you need to do that sometimes, because I know there are days that just can pull you down. So reading that day's affirmation sets you in a different mood set, reprograms your mind to wanting to have the positive, and maybe add something yourself to it, like da 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 da, and that becomes your mantra as well. But please, the sunny side of the street is always there. You've just got to walk over to it. Until next time, bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show right here on selfdiscoverymedia.com. Please tune in to our selfdiscoverymedia.com/shows, and you will see all the other genres that we have from you. Every week on Tuesday, we bring you new shows from illuminating people. If you know someone that should be interviewed, please contact us at info@selfdiscoverymedia.com. Now stay tuned for your next show.